Alright, imagine that it's the last day before a big chemistry exam tomorrow. You have put it off for so long, but now there is no option other than to study. You really don't feel like studying, so you pull out your phone and decide to set a timer for 25 minutes and after take a 5-minute break because you heard that it's more productive. You start studying, and after a while you start getting more and more concentrated, when suddenly you hear the timer. You lose your focus and you get to take a 5-minute break. Whilst taking a break, you randomly start thinking about other things, and when the 5 minutes is up, your mind has pretty much lost entirely what you were doing and studying, and it takes you a while to get back into it. Just as you're starting to get fully into the flow again, solving questions and building momentum, the timer rings again, initiating another 5-minute break. Now imagine these interruptions throughout the whole preparation for tomorrow's test. It would be really annoying, and you're going to end up being unprepared for the exam tomorrow, and do horrible on it. Not that favorable, right? If you haven't met yet, hello, I'm Aaron, based straight-A student, and a few months ago I wanted to be more productive when it came to my studies. And so I went onto YouTube and typed up best productivity tactics, enter. And every single motherfucker out there, I remember, recommended me Pomodoro technique, Pomodoro technique, Pomodoro technique. And so I thought, surely, it can't be this good. I watched some of the tutorials and I decided to implement it in my next study session. The exams are coming up fast, right? And if this Pomodoro technique doesn't help me become more productive, then I'll end up doing poorly on my exams. And so I really wanted this to work. But ultimately, it didn't make much of a difference. But that's when, luckily around that same time, I read a book by Cal Newport called Deep Work. From there I got the main concept of deep work and flow states and implemented them, and that really made a difference for me. By using them correctly in the studies realm, I became a much more productive and time efficient student, and I was able to score really well on the exams. Real quick, you can check out my personal most used Notion templates. They're the first link down below. It's completely free. So here is why I absolutely despise the Pomodoro technique. Even people in school, like authority figures. One day I remember, right, some people came and they were like talking to us about the national tests and how many different exams we have close to each other, and they gave some tips, and I remember one of them saying like, make sure to study for 25 minutes and no more, and then take a 5-minute break. And I was like, fuck me, that's such an inefficient method. Because after I read Deep Work by Cal Newport, it really rewires your mindset on how you think about actually getting shit done and productivity. And so this would have really helped me to know when I was younger. Now, the number one reason why the Pomodoro technique is actually bad is that you never get to actually enter what's called a flow state. A flow state is a term coined by some kid called Mikhail, I don't know, his last name is super long, and basically it's when you're fully engaged in doing a task. It's when you have no external thoughts and your mind and the task, you and your task are one, if that makes sense. Athletes like commonly refer to it as like being in the zone, and it's basically when you have no random thoughts that pop up into your mind, no insecurities, and you're so embedded into the task that you even completely lose track of time. It feels like time just flew by without you even realizing. That's when you know you're in a flow state. And for us humans, it has been scientifically proven through studies that it's when we reach peak happiness levels. But also, not only from studies, but from my personal experience, I found that in flow states is where you produce your actual best work, and it's where the real work, the real high quality work is produced. Now, the problem with the Pomodoro technique is by the 25-minute mark, when you're just in the flow for a couple of minutes and you're just, getting into the groove of things, your timer rings and you're completely pulled out of the flow, and you go back into, out of the task, and you're not in a flow state anymore. You never get to go in a flow where the real high quality work happens. And also, the 5-minute break that you take, if you think about other things like Instagram or Snapchat, or you engage your mind with other stuff because it's your break, that actually is a lot more of a break than 5 minutes, because your mind has what's called an attention residue. It's basically where, let's say you are studying on an English essay for 25 minutes and you take a 5-minute break, and during that 5-minute break you decide to scroll on Instagram and see what people are up to. Okay, completely fine. But when the 5 minutes is up and it's time for you to get back into the English essay, your mind is still thinking about, oh, what did that guy do? Where did he actually go? And your mind is still on the topic of the Instagram. And it'll be harder for the mind to come back into the actual English essay to focus. So it's not really that auspicious where every half an hour your mind is being diverted and is not being able to focus on one thing for long enough. The better alternative, which is what I only use now, like I completely screwed over the Pomodoro technique, never am using it again. It's what's called deep work. You can maybe see that I have the book over there, it's a yellow book. But deep work is where basically you work for an extended period of time without any distractions or interruptions or anything like that. The deep work sessions last for like an hour, 2 hours, and that gives you enough time for you to get into the flow and actually get some good work done. So if we go back to the English essay example, it's much more efficient and effective to just bang it out in a couple of deep work sessions and just get it over with, get it out of your mind, and so your mind isn't giving it more attention throughout the rest of the days, instead of letting it live rent-free in your mind for much longer doing bullshit Pomodoro techniques. So how do you set up this deep work thing to make it as effective as possible so you get the best deep work sessions with your time? Firstly, the best time to do it is directly after you wake up in the morning. You might be like, how the fuck do I work then? That's exactly when I wake up, I'm gonna be tired. But like, how are you gonna be tired after you sleep? Like, bro, you literally slept for 8 hours. I mean, hopefully. You're gonna be tired after you sleep. Like, in the morning, you should, like, not shoot up, like how they do in movies and stuff, but you should have energy in the morning because you just had 8 hours of fucking rest. Also in the morning, I've personally found, I talk about this extensively in this video here, you can check it out later if you want. In the morning, you have like this sleepy, groggy feeling where you're not really thinking about anything else, and your mind is kind of like this blank slate. And so you can go straight into the task, and your mind will be super easy to get into the flow state. This is the habit called Eat the Frog, which I do every single day now. I have it here on my habit tracker, ETF, and it's basically where every single morning you wake up, and for 2 hours you do a deep work session where you get into a flow state, and you do the hardest, most difficult, strenuous, arduous task of the entire day, and finish it off in the morning. So that the rest of the day you don't have to deal with the bullshit of the task, of it like keeping on going around your mind, and you like not being able to stay in the present situation and constantly worrying and thinking about that task. Secondly, the best place to do it I've found is in your room without any distractions. Close your door so your family can't bother you, and that's when I personally produce some really good work. It's much better than like going to a public coffee shop and sitting with a latte with everyone around you. That can be fun at times, but it's not really favorable if you just want to get as much productive work done as possible. Like, you can do that on top of the deep work, which is where the actual work is done, but in cafes you've got lots of distractions, and even if you wear like, I don't know, wireless headphones, you might be like, well, that's gonna tune out everyone and then I can focus. I've tried that, but it's still not as good as just sitting in your room completely alone, no distractions, your phone switched off and optimized, door closed, and you like tell your family that you're gonna like do some work and not to interrupt me for like an hour, 2 hours. When you are working in your room, another environmental distraction can be all the different like junk that you have lying around. Each different thing can cause your mind to subconsciously, like on its own, think of something. Like let's say you saw a video game controller. Even if you had planned to like study on something right now, if you spot that video game controller, your mind could randomly come up with a thought of like, I don't know, let's play COD right now with the boys. And that tiny bit of a distraction, that's for like all the different random distracting objects that you have in your environment. So it is important that you fucking clean your environment, you clean your room. Basically, the less cluttered your environment is, the less cluttered your mind is, and so the higher quality work you can produce. So bro, don't fall into this really common trap of Pomodoro technique. It's super ineffective. Instead, just prioritize deep work and practice getting into a flow state. Flow states, you've probably experienced them before, right? It's like, for example, when you're playing a sport and you're completely in the zone. It's when you're playing video games and you have no other external thoughts in your mind other than the task or the video game at hand. And it's a beautiful experience when you're completely in the flow, especially on something that you actually enjoy doing. So I'm just putting this out there to say fuck you to the Pomodoro technique. It's absolute dog shit. And every time I see like the nerd doing his stupid cute little Pomodoro technique, I just honestly just feel sorry for him. Like, I'm not even mad or anything, I'm just like it's like, bro, you can be doing so much more effective things instead of Pomodoro technique. But you know, whatever. So bro, promise me not to do any more Pomodoro techniques if you are using them. I personally don't do any, I only do deep work. If you got this far, you probably feel like you can do better than 99% of students out there. Because let's be honest, most students are out here using Pomodoro technique. And so if you want like an approach to that, using the studies realm, the self-improvement realm, and the unscripted escape the matrix realm, you can click here where I talk more about that. Follow me on Instagram at Aaron08x, link down below, and check out the Notion templates too. And as always, your potential is only limited by your intention. Take care, bro. Secondly, the best place to do it I've found is in your room without any distractions. You close your door if you can, close your windows,